Welcome to the American Liberties Call. This call is for educational purposes only. It should not be taken as legal advice in any fashion or to advise you about what you should or should not do. Information offered on this call is to assist you in performing your own due diligence before implementing any strategy or procedure. My name is Chris Chapman. I will be your host. I will not be held responsible for any opinions, statements made by anyone on this call. I believe this call is protected under the free speech of the First Amendment, and I would like to give formal notice to any and all government employees and any private citizens that you have 10 days after listening to this call to notify me via email, americanliberties@gmail.com, of any word, phrase, reference, or statement which is inaccurate, incorrect, misleading, or not in full compliance with state and federal law, and give me 30 days to correct and cure any alleged potential flaw. As always, American Liberties intend to be in strict compliance with the law. Now, on with the show. Okay, thank you. I'd like to welcome Kelly Alexander to this call. She is. I met her recently. I had a couple of discussions with her, and along with the Master Royal Hardy out of Hawaii, and we had like I said, a very good call. I find her to be a person of integrity, a person of great knowledge, and very well organized. Now, many of you know that I've been in this movement, if you want to call it a movement, for many years, and there's plenty of platforms out there. A lot of them are hucksters, and others are diligent in doing what they're trying to do, and any program that I bring on, like Kelly or anybody else, is you know I bring them on first because I find them incredible. Now, could I be wrong? Of course, I could be wrong, but in most cases, I know enough about the subject that I know when somebody's legit or not, and because I may be offering one or two programs to people as suggestions. Not that I'm saying you got to do this, because you ultimately have to make the decision. All the paperwork can be done for you. All the law could be given to you, but if you don't follow up and if you don't have the knowledge to withstand a personal attack, then you have to consider, is it necessary to do what you're doing? Because they will come on, most likely they will come on you, that you will have to defend for yourself, and you will have to rely on the paperwork, but it's up to you to know and be secure in your knowledge to stand behind the paperwork that you do, regardless of who gives it to you. So, with that being said, I'd like to introduce Kelly. And Kelly, unmute yourself. I got you muted out. There you go. And go ahead and on with the show.
All right. Thank you, Chris, so much. Yes, I'm Kelly Alexander, and I've been studying this movement, if you will, since about 2009. And I had some rough dealings with IRS at that time. And, one breadcrumb after another, I learned a lot of things. And I now am running a company. I help people with tax relief. The Great American Tax Remedy is my company. And so I just wanted to kind of get to know this audience and let you know a little bit more about what I do. I have two distinct remedies for income taxes. One is primarily designed for those that are W-2 career employees, those that expect to remain in a job um, pretty much indefinitely. And then the other remedy uh, is geared more toward those that are self-employed or investors or retired folks. So I'm curious if those of you that are here, if you could put in the chat, which of the two you are, so I can speak mostly to those of you that are here, whether you're in a job or if you're not in a job, or business owner or entrepreneur, investor, just so I can get a little sense of who's here today.
Yeah, and also I'd like to add that if anybody has any questions, feel free to raise your hand and or put it in the chat, and we'll take a break and answer each question so it's not forgotten. Is that okay, Kelly?
That's perfect. Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. All right. Okay, so what do we have in the
So we've
chat
got
here?
W-2 an investor, W-4 with withholdings. I'm a wage slave, hopefully not indefinitely. I'm self-employed. So few more there in the both. Okay, yep, that's common. So um I have a hunch that many of you are aware that there's a good amount of misdirection with the IRS and the media involving the IRS, and that there are um, issues the way it's presented and what we're told, all the indoctrination and you have to do this and you have to do that, when the truth is, for most Americans, filing and paying taxes is legally voluntary. Um, and I have found that the revocation of election, which is the remedy that I recommend to those that are self-employed or investors, can utilize that with great success. Those that are W-2 employees they're tangled more deeply into the system, the matrix, if you will, of the income tax system. And it can be harder for them to exercise what is actually voluntary in that framework of being a W-2 wage earner. So let me speak to that process first.
And Kelly, do you need the screen to share your screen?
No, I don't think I'm going to be doing slides today. I think we'll just have an informal discussion.
Okay.
Yeah. So for those that are W-2 wage earners, your employers are as or more indoctrinated than you are. And they're told by their payroll legal teams that they must collect a W-4 withholding statement. And they're programmed, and they're just as afraid and nervous, if not more so, than everyone else. And because they're indoctrinated to make all these reportings as a withholding agent, when many of them are private sector companies, they have no business collecting withholdings from their workers. but it's so ingrained in the system now. So it's a bigger struggle if you're a W-2 to leave the system. It really is. So, but for you, there is some banking law that I discovered many years ago in the United States codes, and it talks about Federal Reserve notes. That's our dominant currency here in America. That's what we're carrying around in our wallets, the Federal Reserve notes. But in Title 12 banking law, there's a provision in there where you can redeem Federal Reserve notes for something known as lawful money. It's a pretty generic term, but in the context of this statute, lawful money is money that is authorized by our US Congress to issue directly with no involvement of a central bank, such as our Federal Reserve. So when the Congress or the Treasury issues this other lawful money, it's a different species of money, if you will, very different in nature than the Federal Reserve notes. Federal Reserve notes are debt instruments that place an obligation on the US government to be paid back both in principal and interest to the Federal Reserve. The lawful money doesn't have that obligation. It has certain other obligations, but not the repayment of each one of those lawful money dollars, currently known as United States notes, as a debt to bank. So, because that debt obligation does not exist on this other lawful money, it's not subject to the income tax. Yeah, it's a mind blower if you've not heard this information before. So I guide people in how to correctly make their demand for this other currency and then reflect that position on a tax return. And then they usually, I would say 90% of the time, they receive a refund of their withheld payments for federal taxes. Several of the states also honor this lawful money process, and many people receive refunds from their state income taxing board also. So that's the gist of that one. It does have about a 90% success rate, and the demand for lawful money, besides helping you recover and keep much more of your money, it's a way to pull back power from the Federal Reserve System. It's a way to help lower the national debt, because every Federal Reserve note issued into existence is $1 of debt plus interest on the government. When people start demanding this other lawful currency, it lowers the debt, because now it's not a Federal Reserve note that comes with a debt obligation. So our national debt decreases, and this other lawful money cannot be used as the basis for fractionalized lending that the banks do, regularly. So they cannot take deposits of lawful money and extrapolate 10 to 20 times that value and create new money into circulation in the form of new loans, whether it's through credit cards, mortgages, personal loans, business loans, whatever. So that's cool. It's very nice, very good. If any of you have not heard of the book called The Creature from Jekyll Island, written by G. Edward Griffin around 1994. It's a great expose on the Federal Reserve System. The creature refers to the Federal Reserve, and Jekyll Island is a small private island off the coast of Georgia where many of the top banking families in the early 1900s gathered over a period of time to figure out how can they get a foothold of their central bank established in America permanently. They had short-term charters ever since the country was founded. But in 1913, the Federal Reserve Act got legislated into existence, and they have monopolized our economy and monetary system ever since then. So fascinating.
Kelly, I have a question
Sure.
before we get off on the monetary. When you said you have 98%, I think you said success.
90, 90.
90%. How do you know that it was a success? Not that something is going to come back 10 years, 5 years later or something like that.
So from my perspective, when the person receives their refund, it is a success. It is possible that something could come back later, but I help the client, if it does, stop any collection efforts from IRS because they have no business enforcing Title 26 tax code on a private American.
Okay, thank you.
So I don't worry about that. I help them keep their money once they have it. It's for those that don't receive the refund right out the gate or initially. Sometimes they receive a frivolous filing notice, or they get a letter saying that they reviewed their return and they changed it.
Right.
And that's harder to overcome. In fact, I haven't yet. I'm working on that.
Yep. Now when they because I asked that question because I don't know if you're aware of a gentleman named Pete Hendrickson, cracking the code. He's got a lot of people. I mean, he's got a list from here on in on all the money that he received. That people got returned, and
Yes.
yet he doesn't have the first name of people who went to prison after the IRS came back, waiting for interest and penalties to accumulate, only to extract them from their homes and put them behind bars.
Yes, I know of Pete Hendricks, and some of his clients come to me, for help, because they're
Right.
in some trouble with IRS. Some of his people have been successful, and some of them have not. I don't know the
Right.
portion, but I say, well, you learned this from Pete. Why don't you go to Pete for how to navigate when something goes awry? And
He's not home.
he doesn't answer the phone. He doesn't
Yeah,
respond. So that's unfortunate.
it is, and that's why I select you and a couple others that I work with because you're there, you're behind it, and you follow up. And that was going to be one of my questions, so the audience would hear: if somebody gets hammered and they have to go to court, could you be called as a witness?
Well, I suppose that I could technically. I am not a CPA. I'm not a tax attorney. I'm not a paralegal. I have no licenses. I'm not even licensed as a tax preparer. I'm a coach who educates people. So in court, I'm not sure how I would be perceived. I mean, I can read and study and learn. I have a good mind, that type of thing, but I don't have credentials
Mm-hmm.
that would be persuasive, possibly in a court setting.
Well, that's why I started off with,
Yeah,
we're a knowledge-based organization.
yeah.
Mine is, yours is, and others that I work with. We're a knowledge base. We have all the facts and evidence to support our position. But it's up to the client, or in some cases the patient, that has to know the knowledge that he's standing on. You just can't point, guide, direct somebody else to stand instead for you when they come after you. You have to know what you're doing. Thank you.
Yes, yes. None of my clients have ever been charged with any. I mean, they get administrative letters, a frivolous filing notice, or something similar on occasion, but it's never gone any further than that, ever.
Yeah, so you agree the administrative remedy is the only remedy, because if they ever get you into court, in most cases, um, it's over.
Yes, yes. In most cases, that's correct. And I'm court averse. Steer clear of that. It would be nice on some level to see a case like, having to do with this lawful money redemption go to court, but I'm not a court expert at this point in time. So,
Chris, can I make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Craig. Hey, whenever you go into court as an expert witness, all that means is you know more than the average guy. Doesn't mean you're an expert in anything. It just means that you know more than the average person on that particular subject. And we got a bunch of expert witnesses kicked off as being expert witnesses when we asked them some simple questions like, what's GAAP? General accepted accounting principles. And the accountant didn't know. And I turned to the judge and I said, well, if she doesn't even know that, what else doesn't she know? And so the judge was trying to, prop this person up, and we went after the judge. And that's the thing, is you're going to have to be able to have the gonads to go after these people if you get into court. Because if you don't, they're going to know it, and they're going to know it right away, because all they do all day long is examine people. So, that's the problem. And then you get people that don't learn the rules. They don't know the standard objections, and if they don't know that stuff, then they're cannon fodder. They're easy pickings.
Court is a whole ball game in and of itself, and you've got to know what you're doing there, and you've got to be able to stand up. They will make things up, say things, whatever they think they can get away with, and if you don't call them out on it, then it stands as fact.
Yep.
Thank you, Craig.
Yeah, so they're going to talk about contempt and all kinds of things, and you just tell them, look, so you're going to find me in contempt if I try to defend myself here? Okay, go ahead. We can't wait to see the lawsuit.
Yeah.
And Craig is on the list to be on one of my calls in the future as well. Craig and I have been go back for many years. Okay.
Chris, Mark, this is Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Yeah, chap, I know also, as you know, my situation. I also have a gentleman that handles my situation or helps me with it. And he's not a bar associated attorney or a lawyer. He calls himself a lawyer, but not an attorney. But you know who the gentleman is, and I won't mention his name at this point, but he is my Sixth Amendment counsel. So he is able to represent me in that arena. But I haven't been in a courtroom, which we talked about before. You don't really want to even be in that court setting, because you're not really in a court that represents us in a private matter. That's a corporation, and that's a whole nother arena that you don't want to get into with passing in through that bar, as we talked about.
Yep. Yeah, and that's why it's important that you don't want to go to court if you can. You want to handle it administratively. You want to build your administrative record. You want to keep all that as evidence, and that's what Royal uh, does, and this is what Kelly does, as well as what I do. So we're and we're not, I don't look at us as competition, okay? I look, especially me, I'm not competitive with anybody. In fact, I'm helping everybody. I'm helping the people that supply the information, and I'm trying to help people, if they can't afford it, to be able to afford it. And so, I like the position I'm in, and Kelly likes hers. And when you like something, you do it well. So back to you, Kelly.
All right. Yeah, thank you for that. All right. So, yeah, the administrative record is very important. It's never a good idea to remain silent when you receive something from IRS. Many people get nervous or scared. They don't know what to do. But remaining silent is the worst of all the dishonors.
Yep.
And it means ultimately that you agree with whatever position they are holding up against you. Yeah. All right. So that's a preview of the remedy for the W-2 folks. Now I'm going to shift gears and talk a little bit about the revocation of election, which is the remedy for everyone else. So revocation of election is the correct way to change your status with IRS specifically from taxpayer to lawful non-taxpayer. I see it as a jurisdictional remedy. So IRS is part of the whole Washington, D.C. corporate democracy federal jurisdiction. However, most people, especially those that live and work in the private sector, they're alien to that jurisdiction. They're members of the republic, not the democracy, the 50 states, not Washington, D.C. And so in the revocation of election, it's a way to very specifically clarify your authentic jurisdiction, which is outside the jurisdiction of the IRS as private men and women. There's all kinds of body of law that supports revocation of election, from Supreme Court cases, 16th Amendment. 16th Amendment is one of my favorite ones because IRS will say, well, people come forward and they make claims that because the 16th Amendment wasn't properly ratified, that they're absolved of paying the income tax. Well, I'm sorry, but that's BS. That's not the reason that they're not, that they're required, that IRS says that they're required to be taxpayers. The 16th Amendment is very simple. I think it's a paragraph long, and it talks about, yes, the Congress has a right to lay and collect taxes on incomes without apportionment, blah, 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 blah. It's very simple. And that one little phrase, without apportionment, is the key. IRS will never talk about this. Whether it was ratified or not, it's considered an official amendment, so it is what it is. And in our US Constitution, which applies to the 50 states of the Union, not to Washington, D.C., it says taxes can only be collected with apportionment. So that 16th Amendment, when you understand that two-word phrase, says in bold neon lights, when you understand income taxes are for federal workers, federal employees, those who hold federal office, those who live and work or have a trade or business directly connected to the federal government. That's it.
See, I'd like to add to that. My position has always been from for many years is that the 16th Amendment, the courts have deemed it frivolous to argue, well, it was never properly ratified. Well, that's irrelevant. It's been around for 100 years now, so who cares? The 16th Amendment gave Congress the power to lay and collect taxes. So my question is, where did that power get transferred to the secretary? When did the secretary get the delegation of authority from the secretary, which can only operate in DC unless there's a specific law pursuant to Title IV, Section 72? All offices of the seat of the government shall be exercised in the District of Columbia and not elsewhere, unless expressly provided by law. So where is the law that extends that authority to the secretary, and in addition to what Kelly brings out? So right there, the 16th Amendment, you can just annihilate the 16th Amendment, whether it was ratified or not, gold letters and what have you. It doesn't matter, because and if I was never a proponent of the revocation of election as I've seen it in the past. But when you have case law really following it up, and you use the trade or business relationship, and by the way, would you feel that you being tagged as a U.S. citizen to break that presumption, not their presumption, but you, when I say you're the people's presumption that they are a U.S. citizen, how important is that, Kelly?
I think it's very important. The U.S. citizen got instituted with the 14th Amendment, where
Right.
it was communicated as this is the freedom for the newly freed Negro slaves after the Civil War. But what they really did, they created a new subject class, U.S. citizen, i.e., citizen of Washington, D.C., not the authentic, original, organic citizenship of your state where you were born. And so over the decades, people say, oh, yeah, I'm a U.S. citizen. I love America. U.S., right? They don't realize these two distinct jurisdictions. And so U.S. citizen is really based on benefits and privileges, not the unalienable rights assured by the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution for America.
Right, because if you go in there, administratively, this has got to be broken, because
Yes.
if you wait to go to court, and you could have 15 affidavits that I'm not a U.S. citizen, and they're just going to say it's frivolous. Why? Because you got a driver's license, you check the box. You got a voter's registration, you check the box. You got a mortgage where you're a tenant of a property you think you own and you pay taxes on. I had a U.S. Not a U.S., but a IRS agent, a special agent, because he gets in their short bus, a special agent, to tell me that he believes that I'm a taxpayer because I pay property tax. Well, there you go. And so that's a presumption they have because you haven't broken or breaking your presumption. So how do you do it? Well, there's ways of doing it. One of them, I have a great affidavit that I do, and uses evidence. But there's other people like Kelly and others I use that have their ways of doing it. It's all effective. But again, we're just building knowledge for you to be well informed, so you can make an informed decision on which way you want to travel. So back to you, Kelly.
Yeah, that's very good. I mean, it honestly, it's really difficult to completely unhinge from that label U.S. citizen. I mean, there's so many agencies and over our lifetime that we've engaged with, and that's just the standing assumption. I did have someone share with me that if you do a FOIA request at U.S. Homeland Security, asking, do you have any records showing that I am a U.S. citizen? And people are getting back responses saying there are no records responsive to your request.
Yeah.
And I did it myself. And I have this page from Homeland Security saying, we have no records that you are a U.S. citizen. And I find that fascinating. I don't know how far that would go.
It's not going too far. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I want to say that I was doing it with some people, and now they're coming back with, you stated you were born in the United States, so it doesn't apply. So what we did now is we revamped the request to say pursuant. Am I as in the request for information, a citizen of the United States as defined in Title 8, Section 1101, parent 36 and 38, I think it is. And now we're making it more defined, because they say generally you were born in the United States. Well, let's be specific. So I put it in there to be specific. And now we're waiting for an answer, which they're not as quick to answer on that one. But we will follow up on that.
Interesting. Is this also from Homeland Security?
Yeah, from Homeland Security.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right. So
can I make a comment?
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at Article 1, Section 8, the U.S. Constitution, it says that under clause, I think it's 16, says that under the powers of Congress, the Congress have exclusive legislative jurisdiction over the United States, not to exceed 10 miles square. That's Washington, D.C. Then it says sports magazines, and then what's added to that, but it's not added because it wasn't written, we didn't have territories then, is the territories, insular possessions, things like Guam, American Samoa, American Virgin Islands. That's the United States. And then you have places like military hospitals or military bases. Those are enclaves or magazines, or the VA hospital. Or international airports. That's considered the United States. When you're in one of the several states, you're not in the United States, even though they have the Buck Act in 1940 where they tried to federalize the states and, pull all this tricky stuff on us. But, and then when you look at the 14th Amendment, there was no such thing as a U.S. citizen until the 14th Amendment happened.
Right.
Yeah, that's what Kelly said, yeah.
Yeah, so, it's like, when they say this stuff, I was in the Merchant Marine for 20 years, and I used to fly back and forth from here to Asia and wherever else in the world I was, where I got off the ship. And so I didn't really understand much back then, but what I did was I would cross out. They would say, "Are you a U.S. citizen?" I would say no. I cross that out and put California citizen. And so I would have an argument at customs and immigration every time I came. And then they'd finally ask, after about an hour of arguing with them, they'd ask me, where were you born? I said, Oakland, California. They said, you're a U.S. citizen. I said, no, that's your declaration, because they're asking for a declaration. So you get to declare where you're from. So the problem is that we don't have honest people in government. Well, hell, we don't have honest people at any level of government,
You're a
because they're always willing to
conspiracy
look the
theorist.
other way. Yeah, you're damn right I am, because you can prove all the stuff that we're talking about, Chris. You
Yeah, I
know,
know.
so and the problem is that most people don't have the brain power to recognize what we're saying, and they just go by an assumption, or like my youngest sister says, we wouldn't do that. And I said, you know, really? I said, well, I was off the coast of South Vietnam and with handling the evacuation of Saigon, and we bombed the hell out of the place and killed probably 15 to 20,000 people. Oh, we wouldn't do that. Yeah, we would. We did. I was there. You know, so that's the thing. That's what you're dealing with. You're just dealing with a bunch of program monkeys who think they know stuff. And really what it comes down to is they don't, and they won't admit it. They can't, because, you know, they got a college degree and you don't, or some stupid thing like that, you know. But anyway, I'll shut up. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. We'll unwind you. Okay, are you open for questions? Does anybody have any questions or comments or statements? Everybody but Craig. No, I'm just kidding. All right. Does anybody have any questions? You can text them, or you can unmute yourself. I believe you can unmute yourself if you want. All right. Well, okay, Kelly, what else?
All right. So, yeah, you know, the bureaucratic apparatus has become so enormous. You know, these people in all the different agencies working there, they're there with blinders on. I saw in dictionary definition of bureaucrat, one that operates by routine and does not exercise intelligent judgment. They can only look at records. You know, they're like automatons. Yes, they're people, but you know, they go into jobs in various agencies, and they're indoctrinated. They're not taught what's real and true and historical and valid. So yeah, it's become a big challenge for those of us, we the people, attempting to preserve our authentic rights. So yeah. All right. So we have about 12 minutes left. Revocation of election. So, you know, the whole citizenship thing, I mean, it's fascinating. You can take that subject really far and wide and deep, or you can do it selectively. I have people that still have a driver license, that, you know, they register their car, they do all, you know, a lot of the things that are considered U.S. citizen activities, but they have done revocation of elections specifically with IRS and shown that when it comes to IRS, they're able to revoke that voluntary election to be a taxpayer. So I'm not an expert on the citizenship topic. I'm certainly aware of it. It just seems like really we never really lost our original state citizenship status. It just got layered over and over and over with, you know, birth certificates and social security number and driver license and applications for credit cards and more. I mean, just all happens has been layered on top of our original status. So I do have documents to reassert your state citizen status. It's pretty simple. You know, declaring your real estate. I don't mean real estate as in property. I mean your real estate as a living man or woman. So anyway, just a little bit more on that. And
So the main thing I get from this is that on the W-4s, you work with people how to fill out the exempt and all that. Do you, if the employer has a problem, do you converse with the employer, or do you write letters for the client for him to send to the employer?
so I've discovered something that you can present to the employer if they are uncomfortable with an employee claiming exempt. Where, okay, so they can ask, it's a pre-prepared letter where they can ask IRS for a waiver of liability. No, it's not a waiver. It's that the IRS would support them if there was ever an issue with them not withholding from their employee. And the IRS will not stand by any employer. They tell them you must withhold. Sometimes some agents have done that and some have not. But if the IRS won't support the employer if they stop withholding, then, or if they, I'm saying it backwards, then the employer is not taking any risk, and so they can feel safer about honoring the employee's request, which is what they're supposed to do. And that W-4 withholding certificate is also absolutely voluntary. But most employers say that, well, we have to have it. We need that. Because they're told, I assume, by the payroll attorneys that set up their payroll departments.
Right. Yeah, I have a letter that when I was a subcontractor, I used to have my own business, and I subcontracted from my own business because it was a trust. I was just a manager. And then when I sold the company and I went to work for other companies, I worked for 3 companies at the same time, all related to the swimming pool business. And when the IRS says, take X amount of dollars from his paycheck, then I would write the letter for the employer to send to the IRS and saying, look, Mr. Chapman has threatened to sue me. I need a whole harmless letter from you. And here is what he's saying that he's relying on. So I will hold the money for 2 weeks until, and they put the date in there. And then, but if I don't get a whole harmless letter from you, in response to this letter, I have no alternative but to give him his money.
Yeah.
And they never responded. So I got my money. And the IRS has never taken any property from me, whether it be money, house, or whatever. I'm not bragging. It's just that you have to be ready. When you make a plan and you make the plan not to pay taxes, well, you got to know what is going to happen. And there's nobody on the planet like Royal, like Kelly, and like the other I call them foundations that I represent. There's nobody like them that can that they're all ready. They know, they're highly experienced, they're highly knowledgeable. Are they knowledgeable in everything? Absolutely not. But but what they do know, they're precise on it. Back to you, Kelly.
All right, so we're closing in on this meeting. I'd like to share my contact information. So if any of you would
Please
like
do.
to discuss with me privately your situation and see what options might be available to you, you can do that. I'm gonna put, okay, so.
While you're doing that, I just want to say I put in a book, or it's 100 questions that you see here. This is the
Yes, this document, 100 reasons why you, as an American,
right.
are not liable for filing and paying the federal income tax.
Yeah.
Okay.
So everybody is on the call has this. Just take it from download it from your
It's in the chat. I saw it
in
there.
chat, right?
Yeah.
And it's pretty good. And I got a couple of suggestions. I'll get to you one day this week on it. And they had a couple things. So, but
Oh,
it's real good. It's well documented. So, all right.
all right. So my email is info@mytaxremedy.com. Okay, so that's in the chat. That's really the best way to contact me directly. And then I have two websites.
Mark, I see you unmuted yourself. Did you have a question?
I was just going to ask Kelly what her feelings are on the W-8 bin as a non-taxpayer.
Good question.
Yeah, I think that document, it's very obtusely written. Most employers are scared to death of it. You show them that and they just back up 25 feet, most, with few exceptions. But the document itself is great.
I've used it many, many, many times.
That's good. What's been
in
your
different, yeah, go ahead.
What's been your experience when you've shared it with others?
They've accepted it every time on several multi-level type companies that are, billion-dollar corporations. But when I showed it, that they accepted that as I'm a non-taxpayer, and basically the W-8 bin, I fill it out properly, and the way I use it seems to not get any objections. I don't get rejected from it saying we can't allow you to come into this multi-level company or whatever company I would even apply it to. So
Great.
it does
That's
work.
great. Yeah, it's very good. I'm glad to hear you've had so no resistance to it. That's nice to hear.
The only thing I question though, is, I still, I've had my, and as Chappie knows, I've had my share of go-arounds with them, and I'm in a big battle with the U.S. Justice Department as I speak. But for the last year and a half, in a pissing contest with them. But anyway, the bottom line is the state is still a hindrance to me. They just levied my wife's account a few weeks ago, and they came here and took I'm in the water treatment business. I had my company van there. They took that out of the yard and loaded it on a flatbed with 5 or 6 squad sheriff's departments here and about 18 people with guns all pulled out. So they took my van and I lost that. And I guess I don't know why but I think the state is almost worse than the feds.
Yeah.
I noticed that with the state tax boards. I'd rather deal with IRS than them.
Yeah, they're pretty nasty, I'll tell you that. And you would think that their only thing is when you do your federal taxes, if you do them, and I haven't for many, many, many years, but they have you attach that to, and then a file on top of that with the state, but through the feds. So I don't know how they get the authority to do what they're doing, but they do it anyway.
They take authority that they don't have and they get away with it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I got to say, look what they're doing to Trump. And Trump says, if they're doing it to me, imagine what they can do to you.
Oh,
And Trump is a perfect example of what's happening in New York. They're using a statute has nothing to do with him borrowing from a bank. They're the DOJ is interfering with the Constitution regarding regarding the contract. You know, you can't. The government cannot interfere with a contract, especially if it's a legal contract. The banks don't have a problem. They made money off of Trump. They got all their payments. They got the interest. There's no complaining party. There's no damage party, and yet they're going to use a New York law, Statute 63 or something, I forget, but they they're going after him, and we know he's going to win in the long run. But you know, and that's what they do. They attack your money first. They want to close your bank account. They want
yeah.
to obstruct everything, so you can't afford to pay people to get out of the position you're in. And that's why I am here. I'm the saver. No, I have, you know, I have this network marketing. It's not a network I don't even call it network marketing. It's a crowdfunding thing that you can make money and get the money the way that you want to get it. You don't have to have it in a bank account. You can have it mailed to your house if you want. But by us helping you, you're helping others just like you yourself, and we can help you get that money back, or at least make cash flow to help pay. And it's a great, and if you're in a home-based business, excuse me, already, we can get you thousands of leads for a one-time fee out of pocket, and you'll get that money back right away. So you have nothing to lose. So that's my advertisement. Go ahead, Kelly.
All right, so I just posted my email and my two web pages. MyTaxRemedy.com is focused primarily on the lawful money approach, and the Exit Tax Club is focused primarily on the revocation of election information. So, like I said, if any of you want to just talk privately, you know, share whatever's going on, and then we can see what options might be possible for you.
Yeah,
Kelly, may I ask you?
Go
Kelly, I'm
ahead.
sorry, Sam. I was going to ask you, do you do anything similar to what we would think of like discharging the debt? It's
Um,
a debt with a debt. You're paying a debt instrument with a debt instrument. It doesn't make sense.
well, yeah, it's a merry-go-round, really.
I don't think that's her expertise, is
I'm
what
not an
she's trying
expert
to
on
say.
charge, no.
Yeah.
Um,
I was
but
just curious.
but I do help people stop collections from IRS when they get a collections notice.
Uh-huh.
You owe, as long as a lien or a levy has not been filed, I can help up to that point.
Now, once it's filed, you can't help get it off, right?
I cannot. No.
Yeah, we're working on that, and I think we're real close. So stay tuned in the future, everybody, for that. And the okay. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or statements?
Well, I just
Okay.
want to thank your audience. You know, you've asked great questions. It's been nice to have this conversation. I appreciate being here, and we'll do it again one day.
Okay, and Kelly has been great. I thank you, and we'll have you on again, and we'll go from there. The hold on a second. I'm just trying to do something here. I got too many windows open. Okay. I'd like to get some feedback from you all if you like the interaction calls. And because I like to have people ask questions and say what they want to say, as long as we keep the language off, you know, on the table and everything. So with that being said, Royal Master Royal Harding will be on the call next Wednesday, and he has a great package that he offers, and Kelly and Royal and I, we all intertwine with each other. So call Kelly or get in touch with Kelly direct. Um, and like always, if there's a problem in any of the people that I connect with, let me know. Okay, I like to follow up and make sure there's no misunderstandings. So with that being said,
God bless America, and this call is officially over.
thank you. All right. See y'all later. Bye.